rights and women rights. I also would like to say that the moment I work as a director of non-governmental organization which is called La Strada, and it is International Women Rights Center, and the main areas of our activity, promotion human rights and gender equality, combating domestic violence and trafficking of human beings. And La Strada Ukraine is a member of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union since 2003. And my colleague Olga Kalashnik, she is a board member of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Foundation. Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Foundation has more than 25 members organizations, and at the moment all of them are busy with preparation fundamental report about situation with human rights in Ukraine in 2009 and 2010. We hope that at the end of February this report will be presented in Kyiv, and it will be disseminated through website and internet resource both in Ukrainian and English language. And I would like only to pay your attention to some main areas of violation of human rights in Ukraine, especially during the previous year, 2010, because that year was very important in Ukrainian history, this year of presidential election, and really it was a year of cardinal political changes in Ukraine, and these changes are not only in political elites and parties, but direction and vectors of social political development of our country, even values and guiding lines of country development. Last year, according to data of human rights organizations, and even according to the data of Ministry of Interior, the number of action of protests in Ukraine increased in 1/3. And in that situation, we also observe a lot of restrictions from the side of Ministry of Interior, and some of restrictions for peaceful assemblies and meetings even already were put in decrees and orders of Ministry of Interior. And one of the examples, special decree between Ukrainian Unity Day, which was celebrated January 22nd. And the right to assemble peacefully in Ukraine at the moment is under the severe threat. We also observe massive arrests of former government members accused in action taken with impunity by ministers of the present cabinet of ministry, and we consider that these are selective criminal prosecution on the political way. And I can speak about cases not only members of previous government like Yuri Lutsenko or Evgeny Kornichuk, but as well about very active participants or so-called entrepreneur Maidan. It is peaceful assembly of people who protested against taxation codes in Ukraine and who were accused, and criminal cases were opened against the leaders of this entrepreneur Maidan, as well as criminal cases against participants of national non-governmental organization which called Trizu, and this is patriotic organization, and they were accused as terrorists who destroyed monument, Stalin monument. This monument was erected last year near the office of Communist Party of Ukraine in one of the oblast centers in Zaporizhzhia. And before New Year it was destroyed, and Ukrainian KGB, which is SBU, and SBU and police, they accused members of this free group and started this criminal persecution against them. I also have to mention that for 4 years I had been working as a minister advisor on human rights and gender issue in Ministry of Interior of Ukraine. It was in 2005-2006. Then for 1.5 years I have been working as a member of parliament, and then in 2008 and 2009. And we tried to develop a very modern system of human rights monitoring with the Ministry of Interior. A special department with the same name, Human Rights Monitoring, they created in cooperation with Ukrainian human rights organizations, especially Helsinki Human Rights Group, Kharkiv Human Rights Group, and others. And during that period of time, in every oblast we had special military assistants on human rights who were independent from the chief of local police because they were in the staff of ministry. But unfortunately, at the beginning of 2010, after changing of government, this structure was destroyed. And even in situation when a lot of human rights and international organizations tried to appeal to minister and ask them to renovate the structure, it was totally eliminated. We also observe very bad tendency in this private rights of our citizens. For example, such quite big group in Ukraine as people who had special so-called methadone program for drug addicted people, and at the moment they are under such program. And according to the oral decree, I do not know anything about the special document, but in majority of regions, police staff collected data of such people from healthcare organizations and of course against millions of participants of that program and against law on defense of personal data. Can our people appeal to the court, because court system should be the main system on human rights defense? It is very problematic situation at the moment, because we also observe that majority of places in court, in prosecutor office, general prosecutor office, in other law enforcement bodies belong to people from ruling party of region, and not professional, but it's very often necessary to be relative somebody from leaders of this party. And we can, for example, see that the deputy of the head of the Supreme Court on considerable criminal in civil case is a brother of our general prosecutor. And for example, the head of the security service of Ukraine is one of the biggest media magnates and businessmen. Last month, representatives of a number of legal and human rights organizations stand for discharging the head of the highest specialized court on civil and criminal case, Mr. Fisenko, from his post of the judge and the member of High Council of Justice on the grounds of oath breaking, ignoring demands of incompatibility of active political activity is an example of deliberate and international breaking the law, and creates in citizens' minds idea about dependence of all systems of a judge. And unfortunately, such a situation cannot guarantee Ukrainian citizens a real and independent vote. Some more questions. Very new and very popular topic when we speak about human rights in Ukraine, this topic and issue of women's rights and gender equality. Since the last year, it became in the center of Ukrainian policy due to some statement of Ukrainian president or prime minister. For example, last February, being the candidate to the president, Mr. Yanukovych told that the place of women, it is only kitchen. And in 1 month during the official ceremony, Prime Minister proclaimed that it's not women's affairs to participate in political activity in decision-making process. And it were not jokes, because during the last year we observed more and more such discriminative statements behalf on some members of government, but without any reaction from the Ukrainian ombudsman, courts, or others politicians. And as a result, we also have a new draft of pension code, which warns the situation of women in the labor market. And we also can tell that Ukrainian law on equal rights and equal opportunities of men and women is absolutely ignored by our government. Even during the last institutional reform, it was in December 2010, responsible ministry, family and youth, was closed, and any other structure which should be responsible for this very important part of policy and which connected with women's rights and human rights, policy combating trafficking in human beings, domestic violence, promoting gender equality. Such institution was lost during such institutional reform. The last point, I have to say that in this situation, really very non-governmental organizations, women organizations, they play a very important role and have a lot of positive initiatives which help us to look the future and at least to keep some optimistic view and to have some optimistic perspective even in such difficult